The advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Granpeesheh and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen on the Autism Network. I'm here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, everyone.
It's so good to be back. Both of us took a little bit of time. We had, a lot
Travel
of things
and
and
things,
birthdays
yes,
with children. And what do you call adult children? Do you still call them children?
They're children.
Could we get a new word, please? I'm asking everybody, make a new word, please. Anyway, we're back and we're here and excited to be here. And you look fantastic.
Thank you. You
look a little bit
too.
rested.
I'm so not rested. I got in at midnight last night.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
so tired.
I don't know how you do what you do. But we're very excited. If you've been watching along, we are now on the Autism Network, and it's very exciting. I think at some time this week, if not right now, we're sort of splintering off. And Ask Dr. Doreen it's been its own podcast forever, but it will be available as its own podcast now, and very soon it will have its own app.
Right.
So we're very excited about that so that you guys can tune in and see all of the Ask Dr. Doreens. We also have a new show that's going to be starting very soon, Autismo y Familia.
That's wonderful.
Is starting very soon, and we're very excited about that as well. And of course, we'll continue to bring you Autism Live and all the things that we do with Autism Live. But excited to be here with you.
Thank you. Me too.
For people who don't know, you're a true expert in the field of autism. You've been working in this field for over 45 years.
That is correct.
Which is stunning. So she came out of the womb, woke up, and began working in this field. No, she is younger than she looks. No, you're older than you look. That's what I'm trying to say.
Do you know what? I recently, a parent reached out to me on one of the social media, and she was kind enough to write that
Yes.
I can't believe you look the same as.
I know.
And I went, and I realized that she was a parent of a child that I had worked with literally in, I think, 1979.
Yeah.
Or 80 maybe.
So
and
her
I was
child
like,
getting ready to turn 40?
40, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like a lot of older parents reach out to me, or parents from my past, but that one was probably one of the first ones.
That's amazing.
I know.
Well,
It's
and if you
amazing.
think about it, because you were part of and helped produce a documentary called Recovered: Journeys Through the Autism Spectrum, which followed 4 individuals on the spectrum. It showed them when they were like 5, 6 years old, and then it showed them when they were teenagers and a little bit older than teenagers. And they've all turned more than 30,
Yes,
which is
yes,
crazy
yes.
to think. So,
But also, when you were saying that, I just remember, we made a documentary when I was at UCLA, and I don't remember the name. It would have been something having to do with the clinic there, but that was a very, very interesting, I think it was.
where is that? I want to see that.
Oh, yeah. And I'm thanked in that because I worked a lot on editing that and so on, and I'll be sure to find it, but it is a fabulous documentary because it goes all the way back to how we developed the programs of ABA, right? This is before ABA existed, and it shows actually the kids that we worked with. I can't believe you've never seen it.
I'm wondering if I have. I saw something that I thought was from the New England that sort of detailed this. I want to see this. I don't know that I
so
have
this
seen it.
this is all just Lovas and the clinic at UCLA, and of course when we started, like I did some of my work, postdoctoral work, predoctoral work, we would be going to Camarillo State Hospital, which this was before deinstitutionalization, and there were 2 autism wards there. And it was one of the most fascinating things I've ever experienced. But some of this film also shows children who were at Camarillo State, and they were the original children that the Lovas group took them from Camarillo State Hospital and actually had them live with folks like me, grad students, and then worked intensively with them and showed how they changed and how they learned.
Wow.
And then obviously this project had to end because they couldn't keep going. So then the kids went back to Camarillo State and lost everything. And so that was kind of a very, very sad but very telling situation that had occurred. And so you see those children actually in therapy. And then it's you know, all the way back to the early 70s, and then it shows how we, it's the video that goes with the 1987 publication.
Got it.
So it shows how we treated that group of children that were in the Lovaas clinic intensively, and how half of them recovered and all of this. It's a really good video. I'll have to find it.
Yes, please, because it's the reason, it's the beginning core reason of why all of you have insurance that covers ABA, because that started
That
the
was
path.
one of the key articles. Yes, that's right.
Amazing. Well, I want to say Traven showed you guys how to log on to the show, all the different ways that you can watch it. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and a dozen other places that he just showed you. He wants me to remind you, don't forget to like and share, because that's how we survive, right? Is by you guys sharing. We don't spend a lot of money on advertising. We count on you to share it with other people. People are writing in right now on our live chat. And I want to acknowledge R, who says, thank you for all the help and advice it takes. Makes me a better parent, and thank you for that. We're saying hello and high fives to Carolina, or Carolina, however you say that. Parker, welcome back. Parker, I know I promised you live shows earlier, but we're back. Parker says, institutionalization still happening in a lot of countries, unfortunately. R says, I love hearing stories from Shannon when she talks about her experience with GEM. Is there any way I can hear more in-depth talks from parents' perspective on their children? We have so many things in our library of videos that you can go through and see, because for a long time, Nancy and I used to do a segment that was Autism Family Portraits, it was called. So you can search that. We've tons where parents talk about their kids. We're saying good morning to Jose, who's writing to us from Calgary, Canada. How's your air quality up there?
I was going to say, the fires are up there, so hopefully you're doing okay.
Yeah, I hope so, because, man, I'm hearing from my friends on the East Coast here that it's just horrible, that they have advisories, can't go out, that the government is issuing respirators to people in New York City.
Wow.
Which is, you know, when you think about that, you go, oh, okay. Hey, we always start with a topic now on Tuesdays. It's our sort of jump-off topic. Then we have a couple of questions that people have written in about this topic that we thought we should talk about it today. But then we will answer questions about anything. But we have had some questions that were sent in previously. But feel free to write your question in on social media right now. Our topic today, this is an interesting one, adult diagnosed autism. We got a lot of questions about this because last week the performer Sia came out and announced that she has been diagnosed on the spectrum. This after the firestorm of media when she put out the film Music, and the autism community, many in the autism community, really took offense to it, that it wasn't authentic representation, that she had an actress playing a person on the spectrum instead of, you know, but also because there was a scene with restraint in it. Sia it didn't go well in the very beginning with Sia's response to people about why she didn't cast a person on the spectrum. She apologized for all of that. She then also removed the restraint from the film, and there will be no future ability to watch the film with the restraint scenes. She feels like she's learned her lesson, and she now has come forward and said that she herself has gotten a diagnosis. I know that Sia is trying really hard to be a better ally in our community, but there were a lot of questions that people had about, especially about the fact that an adult diagnosis seems very prevalent. All of a sudden, everybody's getting diagnosed. They want to know how accurate that is, and could we possibly call it something else, because it seems so different than if you've been diagnosed at 2, 3, 5, or 7. So anyway, we've got some questions about this, and you guys might have more questions too. Our first question is, I'm a 53-year-old man. I've been through 3 divorces and lost countless jobs, all because people tell me I am not, quote, understanding them. My last wife said that she thought I was on the spectrum. When I was in school, my parents were told that I might have Asperger's syndrome. Should I go get a diagnosis, and how would that potentially help me?
Right. I mean, I think the second part of the question is more important, I think. How does that help me? How does the diagnosis help me? So let me just back up for a minute and just kind of like throw all my thoughts out at this, because
Let's do it.
there's a lot to be said when it comes to adult diagnosis. So I have so many different thoughts on this. So first of all, I want to say that it is quite a different thing, simply because it is, by definition, if you're getting diagnosed in adulthood, that means that you have a milder version or a milder form of autism that has gone, I don't want to say unnoticed, but you've been able to function in society up to adulthood. And it has now finally come to a point where you're realizing that you're functioning, but you're not thriving, let's say. And there are things that you could perhaps improve on or change or learn about that would help you do better in society, okay? So
Enjoy your life more.
enjoy your life more and thrive.
Achieve
you know?
your goals.
Achieve, grow, exactly. Learn, achieve, grow, socialize, find friends, be happy, etc.
I'm being sticky about it because a lot of times people think that when we say improve, that it means assimilate, be more like everybody else. And
No.
you're not saying that.
No, not.
You're saying achieve
That's
your
why
own
I like the
goals.
word thrive.
Yep.
I like the word thrive. And so the thing is that, usually if I'm diagnosing an adult, it will always be a 1-1 severity.
Okay.
And that means that you have, at most it's going to be a 1-1
If
severity.
they qualify for the diagnosis.
If they qualify for the diagnosis, right?
Okay.
And I do want to touch on, but not too much, I do want to touch on the fact that there's a lot of mistakes being made, and I've seen a lot of adults, much more so than I would see children. In children, it's so much more prevalent that when you go to get a diagnosis, there's a lot going on. With adults, a lot of adults are mistakenly thinking that social anxiety combined with ADHD, for instance, is autism, and it's not. I've had a lot of adults come to me who argued with me almost that they have the diagnosis or that they have autism. And I think it's because they're trying to find a reason for the difficulties they're experiencing. And there's obviously a reason, but it isn't autism, right? It could be social anxiety, which is also pretty debilitating. It could be ADHD, which will affect your life in multiple ways. It could be other things, but it isn't autistic disorder, right? Now, that said, when you're an adult and you get diagnosed, it'll do a couple of things. One is it'll help you say, oh, that's why. It's kind of like, it's sort of like the person who, just is lethargic, can't get out of bed, is like tired all the time, and they go and get a blood test and find out they're hypothyroid. And they're like, oh my God, or they're anemic, that's why I'm tired all the time.
Right.
So it helps you understand that you're part of a group of people who struggle with the same things. That can be, I think, in a lot of ways maybe cathartic, or it can help you feel like you're not alone, and you're part of a group, and that's in itself helpful. The second thing is obviously you will then become qualified for health insurance coverage, right? Because now you have a diagnosis, and for disability and various other benefits. And so that is another good thing about it. The bad thing is that we don't have we don't have good services or enough services or treatment protocols for adults who are on the spectrum, especially not mild adults. So there are a few, first of all, there's a big shortage of services for adults to begin with. Like a lot of the focus and concentration of services, as you know, Shannon, is on younger children. And that's just because the field is newer, there's not enough providers, there's not enough resources, and everybody focuses on trying to help the younger children cope and survive and thrive and so on. But there are fewer adult services, and all of those adult services that exist are mostly for severely affected adults. So they're for adults who are non-communicative or are self-injurious or are so frustrated with life that they cannot function in one way or another and need around-the-clock care.
Not the ones that you were
Not
just
the
talking about.
ones. Those are mostly the three adults, right? So they're severely affected by the symptoms of autism. When you look at the ones, these are folks who are, for instance, you know, they get anxious and they don't know how to plan things well. So they definitely don't understand other people's perspective, and a lot of what they go through is just, like this gentleman said, like, they might say things that they really think or believe, but they won't explain it, and they certainly won't see things from your perspective. So, you know, in general, we as human beings learn very early on to, for instance, not say things that might be offensive, even if they're true. You just won't say them, you know. And when we're children, we do, and as we grow up, we learn, oh, we don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, and that is something that it's a natural ability to see someone else's perspective. And we actually start to feel uncomfortable about doing things like that. But you know, adults on the spectrum won't be able to do that very well. And so oftentimes people will feel odd around them or awkward around them because they're not interacting socially the same way. And so they end up being very isolated, or as this gentleman wrote, you know, you lose relationships that are very important relationships, and it's unintentional. And so what ends up happening a lot of times with adults on the spectrum is that they develop depression because they cannot figure out what they're doing wrong. So it's a very difficult scenario. And I think to answer the question, it's one thing to get the diagnosis and you have the benefits of like knowing you're part of a group and so on. But really, I think we as clinicians need to start providing more services for those adults. And that's, I think, super, super important, is to be able to provide services for very, very high functioning adults, and to be able to really just focus on, honestly, it's really just about focusing on that one thing, which is theory of mind, being able to understand other people's perspectives. It's a very important part of what they need.
Absolutely. I want to address some of the comments. First of all, Jose says it's clear in the West now, so we're glad about that. Hope that the rest of it gets there. Carolina says, we appreciate all the efforts, stories, and experience you share to help us support and guide our young adults with ASD.
Thank you.
Parker says, we had smoke issues here in West Virginia for a few days, but it's okay now. I have a friend in Allentown who said it's literally in campfire-like conditions.
Amazing.
Philippe says, got diagnosed at 25, excited to watch this and learn. Philippe, we're so glad that you're here with us. Please write in with whatever your thoughts are. Autism Journey with Elijah, we're saying good morning to you. Parker says, I still have not forgiven Sia for the music fiasco. I wonder if it's a PR stunt. I know women are grossly underdiagnosed, so I wonder if that's a factor. And he adds, and self-diagnosis is not valid. Here's the conundrum, though. Here's Sia, and one of the things that we clearly saw in her responses to people when she was responding to them was she was not doing perspective taking at all. Like it was, and I was like, where's her PR person? Somebody needs to be on her because she's not thinking about what it's like for the other person. And now she's saying, well, I've been diagnosed by a professional. But there's a period of time in which people are like, I need some help, I need some support. And while we've always said that actually getting the diagnosis other than insurance isn't that helpful, but I think we're all there have been a lot of people who have self-diagnosed. And we don't like that either. And I've said to people who are adults who are saying, I don't know whether to get the diagnosis or not, but they're public people, I've said, don't come out and say that you're on the spectrum unless you have an official diagnosis, because the community does not respond well. They're not welcoming.
Yeah.
Even, you know, I had said the other day, Parker, about Sia, you know, I think we all feel a little raw after the music fiasco, but it's important to welcome her into our community. And, you know, she's not going to get it right from the beginning, right?
That's a very good point.
And we all have, like, if we're, as a parent, you know, if I'm saying I want us all to be more welcoming of people on the spectrum, then sometimes
let's be welcoming.
Sometimes we have to be understanding when they don't do the perspective taking thing as well as we would like them. That is actually a part of the diagnosis. So often you talk about, well, tantruming isn't.
Right.
But not being able to take another person's perspective actually is a part of the diagnosis.
And you just said it very well, Shannon. It's like, we talk about being welcoming. We need to be welcoming.
Yeah.
So, and there's so many celebrities who have said, I don't know if Anthony Hopkins has an official diagnosis. I don't know if, Jerry Seinfeld has. I mean, a lot of people come out and say, I think I have autism or Asperger's, and I don't know if they have an official diagnosis or not. But we just have to be a kind of understanding. And I understand that it's like for the people who actually do have a diagnosis, there's all kinds of feelings. It's the same as parents who have children who are severely affected. They feel that what they're going through is quite different than what the individual who's which is true.
It is true.
And they want different things for their kids. But I think we all just kind of need to be trusting and respectful of others who might feel that there's something wrong, and this is the closest they've gotten to understanding what's going on with themselves.
Well, it's funny, we did get a question. Somebody wrote it and said, I'm trying to be open to all of these celebrities that are claiming to be on the spectrum, but I find myself being resentful. If you could negotiate your world to the point where you are a celebrity, doesn't that mean you really can't claim to have a disability? Am I being too harsh? I just feel like shouting, this is not the same type of autism my son is experiencing, and I don't want everyone assuming it is.
Right.
But it's difficult because if we are a community that is this huge spectrum of people and people who love those people. That is what our community is, and it's hard because it's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely right.
And because the rest, we always say we want autism awareness and acceptance, and I have some friends who say, aren't we done with the awareness? And I always go, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because until everybody in every podunk community knows that just like an adult who's 25 on the spectrum, maybe they've negotiated a lot of things, but they still have challenges. If they qualify for a 1-1, that means needs support.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that they are the same as a 5-year-old who's nonverbal or a 27-year-old who's a 3-3. They're not the same.
No, and that's the thing about autism. It's a huge spectrum. And that's part of the problem, is that when you have such a wide spectrum, there's no real good understanding of like what is the right treatment, because they all have different needs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we both have phones that are blowing up.
My phone is
We
going
must be saying
crazy.
something that's got everybody all up, and because everybody is calling us. Okay, Nisa says, what do we do for our adult loved ones that have been diagnosed to get jobs that will give them a living wage to prevent institutions and group homes? What types of jobs do we know that can provide society and help them to thrive?
That is a wonderful question.
It is.
And this is one of the things that I really love, and we should try to get this gentleman on our show because I admire this so much. I was very lucky to be involved with UBS, which is a bank. They do this kind of thing every year where they have an autism roundtable, and they bring a bunch of people together and we discuss autism issues. And a couple of years ago, last year, I was one of the speakers, actually, and it was a very nice program. But the year before that, or a couple of years, it was right before COVID, they brought together a lot of, this was the topic, was services for adults. And they brought together a lot of parents of adults who were trying to put together programs. There's, as you know, Denise Resnick in Arizona has a program for adults. But there are a lot of other people who've come together and they're developing programs for adults. There was a gentleman whose brother was autistic, and he had started car washes in, I think, the New Jersey area, I want to say. And they were extremely successful, and he had now just, like, the majority of his employees were actually adults on the spectrum. And it was, so these car washes were being run by individuals on the spectrum, and I loved it. I thought, what a brilliant idea to do something like that. So there are many jobs. It's hard. This is another thing that I was talking about. Adult centers that do vocational training are few. But certainly there are the adults, even the most severely affected adults that have interests. And if we can identify their interests, it's important because then you are teaching the individual a job that they actually enjoy. And let's be clear on this. They're not necessarily, their interests are not necessarily going to be similar to ours. Like they have different kinds of interests. For instance, we used to employ a gentleman who was just extremely good at memorizing numbers. And his, we employed him in our HR department because he was just like, he knew everybody's benefits just, you know, from memory. And he enjoyed that. He enjoyed being the person that could just tell you exactly what everybody's benefits were. And it was very impressive, actually. So that's the kind of thing. In some areas you have to, like employers will make modifications, and more employers are learning how to make modifications so that they can support and help the individual. But our individuals on the spectrum have lots of talents, and whether it's kind of a job like working at a car wash, or of course even, you know, there are still places where adults are doing things like matching items that will be sold together, like shoes, or for instance, putting buttons in boxes. Those types of things are all, you know, factory type work. Or if it's something that involves, let's say, computers, which a lot of our folks are very good at, or memorization of facts and that sort of stuff, like research of certain things. You know, some of our adults are the most incredible people when it comes to, like, let's say, researching geography or past history or something like that. So it really just depends on their interests and what they're able to do in the workspace.
We've been doing the show for 13 years, so you can imagine we've featured a lot of different stories of how people are getting it done. We haven't by any means scratched the surface of how many different organizations are getting this done. But I will point you to some of the interviews that we've done in the past with Torquil Sone, who
Yes, exactly.
Helps train individuals to go into working in, like, for Microsoft,
Computer
and
jobs,
SAP,
yes.
and all of those things. We were scheduled to have a gentleman that you had hooked us up with last week. We had to reschedule because he had a conflict.
Oh, right.
For Auticon.
Yes.
That he will be on to talk about this. But there are little pockets everywhere. Of course, Joanne Laura had started Glorious Pies. But there is a place up in San Francisco that has a coffee shop and a craft thing that they are doing. There's the Tidewater car washes in Miami that are doing that same thing. So many different places. Extraordinary Ventures in North Carolina, where parents got together, and there are 5 separate businesses that they put together for event planning.
I love that.
They do laundry, they do table rental and setting up stages, but then they also have all the tablecloths and everything that they rent. They have a florist, they have a gift shop, everything you can imagine. Usually it's a parent or a family member who says,
has started the whole thing, yeah.
But I will also tell you too, there's a growing entrepreneurship among people that are on the spectrum, that they find that they want to be their own boss. And there is a place that helps to train them called Picasso Einstein that has a whole program to help them to know how to run their own business. So there are all kinds of things out there. You just have to look for them.
I love these resources that you just like know top of your
Well,
head.
I'm not always good with the names, but we've done shows with almost all of them. But I will tell you that if you look to see if there's something in your area, there might already be, because there are enough people are getting to the age where people, you know, the family members have said we had to create this. If you find that there isn't, then you have the job of creating it yourself, but just know that there are tons of people to mentor you who have been there, done that before you, to help create the job. I think it's really important to take the bull by the horns, because we'd all love to just arrive.
Yes.
Arrive on the doorstep and go, here I am.
Yes.
But it doesn't always work that way. If your kiddo is into film, Extraordinary Minds has a 2-year program where they can learn rotoscoping.
Amazing.
They do the opening. This is amazing. Anytime you go to a Marvel movie, we always sit through all the credits and watch, because they thank Extraordinary Minds, because they do the openings to all of the Marvel movies.
That's
These are kids on
amazing.
the spectrum that are learning their craft. and then they go into jobs in the industry. So there are
love
things, you just have to look around for them. Okay, I'm a little behind now. I want to acknowledge our dear friend, Autism Journey with Elijah says the past 3 weeks since Memorial Day, Elijah, my husband, and myself have just recovered from the C virus. With an autistic child, you need to progress, who needs you to progress daily. It was horrible. I didn't have a lifeline in place. Now I do. My advice for others, please have a support team in place. Even when you do not think you need one, it would have helped us greatly. That would be my advice for anyone who is on the spectrum or has a loved one who is. I'm sending you a hug. I saw that you were canceling shows, but I did not think that was why. I wished I'd known, but I'm glad that you're feeling better. R says, I think we need to get Sia on the show to settle this, LOL. I would love to invite Sia to be here. I just would want to know that everybody was going to be welcoming, because it's hard. It's hard all the way around. Parker says, because I was restrained and felt powerless and had a grown man put his elbow in my scrotum in the process, one person, one arm, one person on the other one on the leg, that's the reason why you're so traumatized. Parker, I'm so sorry, I did not know that. Of course, that would be very triggering for you. Nisa said, why did Asperger's get taken off the diagnosis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it isn't actually taken off the diagnosis in that sense. We are supposed to diagnose autistic disorder Asperger's type. That's part of the diagnosis that exists right now. Most people don't do that. I don't know, people haven't been trained to diagnose properly, but so it is still a classification that you can give. And I think the whole purpose of it was, once we had the severity numbers in place, like the 1, 3, 2, and all that showing level of support, they removed Asperger's as a separate diagnosis. And I think a big reason behind it was in order to give access to funding for individuals who had previously been diagnosed with Asperger's. There was a big kind of dilemma, because a lot of people who had Asperger's were not being able to access funding in schools or health insurance. Just because of the way the law had been written. So now that it is part of the autistic disorder kind of spectrum, they are able to access funding.
And Parker said that he thinks, and I know a lot of people who say this, that the guy that it's named after, Asperger, was found to be a Nazi, and that there was a lot of backlash about that. And I'm sure that, that might have played a little bit of a role, but people still embrace that phrase. It wasn't like the community said, oh, I'm not going to call myself that anymore. So I don't know, Parker. But it nonetheless, that was found to be the case, that he was someone who was not, he was a Nazi. R says, Temple Grandin says to find your child's strength and build on it. Yes. So my option is custom tailor and build a career to suit them best. Nurture their growth and learning that will be required for that career. Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
And if they like to sew, I mean, there are all kinds of training programs that have that kind of a situation for sewing. And I will say that we've had a fabulous young man who was based out of Utah, I'm not going to be able to remember his name right now, who wanted to be a fashion designer. And he started his own line. In fact, Sue Cho wore one of his dresses for her wedding.
Yes.
She met with him, because she came to me and she said, Shannon, I want this very particular dress, but I want it to be made by somebody on the spectrum. I said, oh, I have the guy for you. And she said, I knew you would. And they had this lovely, they're still friends. He made this beautiful dress for her because she loves pink.
Yes.
And it had these pink flowers on it. So nurture it. I agree with Temple. All of Temple's books really hone in on that, about how to nurture, how to find your child's particular interest.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Siri, for instance, and the jewelry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
there's
just a
another
perfect example.
Yes. Did you know that Siri now she recently has moved out of her parents' home. Her mom was preparing a home for her and setting up a team for the last few years, and she finally has just moved. I don't know if she's out full time or just they're doing it a little bit at a time. It's so inspirational
job.
to watch. They've got a documentary coming out
Yes.
called My Name is Siri.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with when you talk to your phone.
Yeah.
Okay. What about gaming or computer researching or testing? Does anyone know of something like this in Texas? And I was looking to see, because I can't remember where Picasso Einstein is, but I'm sure that there is something, and we'll put that out to people if anybody knows of anything. There is Biddy and Bose in North Carolina that is now a nationwide franchise. Wonderful. Or Sport Facts and ways that this can become a job. Sports
Oh
facts, I
yeah,
would
see,
think
so
that
that's
would be-
like another thing. For instance, like you look at these ESPN shows, and believe me, they have a crew of researchers working on gathering sports facts. So, you know, those are the places that you want to, you don't want to start with something as big as, let's say, ESPN, but there are so many podcasts on sports issues and, you know, web shows and various things, and you might want to reach out and see if they need a researcher.
Wonderful. We had a message come in from our friend Robert, who emailed me and said, "Hi Shannon, I had a question about ABA. Sorry, it's a little long." It isn't. Our daughter, who is nonverbal and has been showing all sorts of progress from her time in ABA, she's currently in a 40-hour weekly early intervention program and starts kindergarten coming this September. Amazing, because that's really hard to pull off, Robert. Doing a good job. The school is recommending for her IEP that she be put in with general neurotypical students and pulled out of class for occupational and limited speech therapy. Both limited time spent on both, with speech around 2 hours a month. And he notes that she hasn't grasped the using the PEC system yet, but knows them. I would love for her to continue with ABA, but after an 8-hour day of her school, how much is too much learning? Me and her mother are so torn. In one aspect, the extra hours with ABA could teach her valuable things to last a lifetime. But on the other side, I would feel so guilty about her going to school in ABA over 40 hours. I fall into that's too many hours and expecting too much from a 5-year-old. She should be able to be a kid and enjoy time after school train of thought. I fully understand how important ABA is, but I don't want to feel like I'm pushing her too hard. I'm torn in which avenue to take. We are located in southern Wisconsin. I appreciate any advice you may have, and thank you. It's a great question.
It is a great question, and it's a good problem to have. Like, let's start
Yeah.
there, because your child is doing so well, and now you're wondering what I should do. And you know, it's a problem. It is absolutely an issue. And what I would do, and I don't even know what the rules are or the laws are in Wisconsin, but when I'm with parents and they're at a kind of fork in their decision of do I do more ABA or do I focus now on academics, and how do I also give my child a social life, I think what I tell them is just to sit down and create what you think is the ideal schedule for your child, and then fight to get that. So that means, like right now, like most of us have our kids in school 30 hours a week. And I'm not sure that all of that is necessary if a child has, for instance, think of children who are heavily involved in some other skill, like let's say kids who are learning how to play the piano or become, you know, concert pianists, or even actors, children who are actors. Their academic schedule is compressed. So they have only a few hours of academics and they have more time to do their own trade, and then they have a lot of time for social as well. So look at it that way and just put together what you think is the ideal schedule. Let's say instead of 30 hours a week of academics, maybe 20 is enough. And so that you're already freeing up another 10 hours there, which could be social, leisure, some other type of fun activity or hobby. And then you also still maintain your ABA, and make sure that the ABA that you're doing is focused on the things that are important. Like if your child, sometimes if your child needs, let's say, to work more on language or more on social, then some of the ABA will be focusing on social as well. So you kind of just produce a schedule. Don't worry about all the things that are limits out there, like, oh, I have to have my child in school every day for however many hours, or I have to do this many hours of ABA. Just bring it all together and say, you know, we feel as parents that my child needs this much ABA because they're still this far behind. The ABA is where you're getting your child caught up to their skills. The school stuff is academics, so you need to really understand, and especially in this day and age, there's so many different types of schooling going on. There are people who do homeschooling. There are people who just have their child go through Khan Academy. I mean, you could do so many different things with schooling. So figure that out. You know, what do you want academically? What do you want socially? What do you want from an ABA kind of tutoring perspective? And bring it all together.
And then I would just add, because this school is always going to say to you, we want them and we can do the best thing.
Right.
And I'm a former school teacher. But I also want you to, no one who's teaching and is doing a good job would feel any other way, because you should feel that way, right?
Right, absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that they know what would happen in your ABA program. I also want to make you aware of the fact that school is going to want your child in the program full time, because that's how they get full funding. Here's the trick. If you don't want to argue with school, there's a time of the day, and it's different in different states, but it's around 10:30 in the morning, where if your child is there until 10:30, they get the full funding for your child for the day. If you pull them out at 10:45, they get the exact number of dollars as they did before. And instead of just fighting with schools, you need to know that. Because if you go back to them and say, hey, you know, we still feel like once you've designed your program to, you know, as Dr. Granpeesheh put it, and if you find that you're not going to keep him in the full program, then you can go back and say, but I would say to them, he's going to be here every day until 11 o'clock. And you'll find that they will be much more amenable and not argue. They'll argue with you a little bit, but not as much as they would have before. The other thing that I want everybody to realize is that there's this thing where we all say, but when is he going to have time to be a kid?
Right.
We all get stuck in that thing. But if you're doing really good ABA, and if it's a good kindergarten, he should get to be a kid in all of those spaces.
Yes.
That, you know, you always say that in the beginning, what you wanted was for every waking hour to be an educationally enriched environment.
Right.
That was reinforcing for the children, which means that it's fun.
Right.
So if it were me, you know, like there's a phase of ABA when they're teaching something to start where it's a little dry, where they're sitting at a table and they're saying, touch this, whatever. That's a beginning phase, and you very quickly move off of that phase. And then I keep meaning to call CJ Miyake, because we talked about him 2 weeks ago. I've never seen somebody who can make it more fun than CJ Miyake. He can make learning anything fun.
Yeah.
Like, I need him to come and teach me how to make my taxes fun. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you have a good teacher, then it should all be fun. None of us ever say when we go to Disneyland, well, it's going to be too many hours.
There you go.
It's too many hours. I don't want to stress them out and take them to Disneyland all day long. You know that they're going to be exhausted by the end of the day, but they're going to have a really good time.
That's right.
And they're going to learn things when they're at Disneyland.
Absolutely.
Right? So, you know, maybe you go back to your ABA team and say, listen, we're going to be adding all these extra hours, so I need you to up your game and make it super duper fun.
Yes.
But if our children fall into bed happy and exhausted at night, guess who will sleep better?
Yeah,
all of us.
Also true. Also true. It's true.
So,
and also, I mean, if you're doing good quality, high quality ABA, social is built into it. Like you do, your child is supposed to be enjoying that as well. And they establish, as you've said many times with Jem as well, they establish really very important and long-lasting relationships with their therapists, which can model relationships in all future life. So I think that's also part of it.
Yeah, but again, quality problem.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have.
That you're getting the right amount of ABA, and that because of that, they've said to you they want to do full inclusion.
Right.
Pretty incredible. So let's celebrate that. And that small amount of OT and speech, very typical. Very typical for kindergarten. Okay, Sarah wants to know, can ABA use to improve academics?
Yes, absolutely, Sarah. And it depends on where your funding is coming from. So, ABA can be used to teach anything. It's a teaching technique. And so if you are getting health insurance funding, generally you're supposed to work on things that are classified as medically necessary. And that does not include academics. If you're getting school district funding, then you are supposed to be focusing on academics. And so therefore, you could still use ABA techniques for academics. Did you see Susie's
I
question?
did. That's why I'm sitting here going, okay.
We should talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, we're saying good morning to Susie Bay, and thrilled that you're here. But Susie has asked, I missed the first half, but I have to ask Dr. Doreen, are you going back to CARD?
Yeah, this is
Dun-dun-dun.
thanks, Susie, for bringing it up, because it's all over the news. So yeah, what's going on, and this is public, so I can actually talk about this, is that CARD, the company that I founded in 1990, and that I grew and I was the CEO of until the end of 2019, has filed Chapter 11.
We should say you sold it in 2018.
I sold it in 2018, but I continued as CEO until 2020, end of 2019. And then I was on the board of CARD until I want to say 2022. So sometime last year, I resigned from the board. But basically, CARD, unfortunately, due to a variety of different reasons, this industry has changed, and a lot of different reasons we won't get into, did not do very well over the last few years. I've been disconnected from it completely. As many of you guys know, I've been very much focused on our work here, our work doing the shows and my social media stuff and writing.
And your work with Autism Care Today. Let's not leave
absolutely,
that out. Your
my
work.
charity, which I love, and a lot of the work that we do there. But yes, CARD has filed for Chapter 11, which is a form of bankruptcy that has to do with restructuring. And so I have re-engaged, I have made a bid to repurchase CARD. It is not by any means final. Now it is going through bankruptcy court, and it will go through what's classified as an auction period, and then we don't know what will happen, if others will try to outbid my bid. But yes, I am trying to repurchase CARD and trying to kind of get it back to, I think, what we refer to as a organization that was built by clinicians and that is very focused on just patient care and taking care of the employees. And not to say that they were not doing that over the past few years. I honestly was disconnected from it. But my goals are just to make things better for the parents and for the employees, and to help to reestablish what I consider to be high quality ABA, and kind of bring that back into the world.
And Parker asks, could CARD shut down if the bid doesn't go through? And in actuality, what you have done is ensured that that can't happen.
Correct, Parker. So if nobody else bids, I get CARD back. And it will not shut down, because I will do everything that I possibly can to make sure it doesn't shut down. CARD is, it's my legacy. I put most of my life into building that organization, and it was really difficult to disengage with it and to completely separate from it. There are still a number of really, really talented, clinicians who
Yes.
very well at CARD, and I'm excited to get the opportunity to work with them again, and also to help as many families as we can. We'll see, and I will happily keep you guys updated on that. We won't know for another month at least.
It made me unexpectedly very emotional.
Yeah.
Because I have so much respect for you as a person, as a clinician, as a businesswoman, and it is a very selfless thing that you have done to make sure.
It's an insane thing.
Well, I respect you so
it's
much.
kind of insane because, Shannon, first of all, you and I are enjoying ourselves. And this was supposed to be my retirement.
Yes.
But there was so much going on that I couldn't, it's been very hard
Yeah.
for the last few years to just turn your back on it, and say, it's not my problem anymore.
Yes.
It is. I'm in the world of autism. It's always going to be my problem. I'm always going to do my best to help as many people as possible. And you and I both would agree, I think, that not having CARD limited the scope of what we could do. You know what I mean? And perhaps now having CARD, obviously I will have a lot more headaches as I did before, but it'll also bring back an army of people, hopefully, that where we can just reach out and help more families.
Well, and it's, the families. It's an amazing thing that you're doing. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And Susie B said, thank God, have been praying for this. And Autism Journey with Elijah says, this is super exciting. This is a game changer. And we will see. We will see what comes of this, but you have ensured that it will go on.
That's true. That's a good way of looking at it.
You
Thank you.
single-handedly have ensured that, and so that is so meaningful to me.
Thank
I can't
you.
even. I'm emotional right now.
I'm gonna have to suck you back into helping other parents through that as well.
And I'm always. You guys know. You guys call me, and I'm. I'm always going to pick up the phone because I owe that. I owe that. When I think about where my life would have been without your work and without the people at CARD who saved our lives, I mean, forget it. It's all over.
And hopefully we'll be able to get together with CJ and Sabrina and some of those amazing people that we often talk about.
Let's see what happens, right? Okay, so there was one other question that we had about...
and Sarah just asked if I would be going to New York. I will be traveling a lot. I'm pretty sure of that. I go to New York pretty often anyway, so happy to see families there as well.
There you go. We had one other question about the adult diagnosed autism. Somebody wrote in and said, is it ever too late to get a diagnosis? I believe my sister is on the spectrum, and I've been telling her for years that she should go for a diagnosis. She says it's too late.
No, it's never too late. I think the oldest person I would have diagnosed would probably be in their 50s or 60s. So no, it's not too late at all. It really just has to do with, if they want the diagnosis, if they want to know if they're struggling, and if they feel that the diagnosis would help them in some way. It would be important, whatever it is. It's not just about autism. I think if you are struggling, it's important to see a healthcare person who can help you figure out what's going on. Just like medicine, it's the same thing.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge our dear friend, Autism Journey with Elijah. She says, oh gosh, I'm dreading this coming school year, but little do they know I'm getting my B case in no time, and with a blue heart. And I just want to say, I love that you constantly pay it forward and that you said to everybody it's important to have that team. And so I'm going to say directly to you that I know, because I went through years where I would dread those IEPs and I hated it so much. And then I know how hard it is right now because you're in a fight right now where they're learning who you are and how strong you are. But the one thing, if I could put anything into your basket, it would be with that wonderful parent from New York City who said to me, he said, oh, IEPs, it's just kabuki theater. Don't really get upset. Just put on your mask and pretend that you're upset because it will all be okay in the end. And while you're worrying about the school, he's growing and changing.
Yeah.
And you will never get these years back. I heard an
That's
amazing
so true.
thing yesterday where somebody said, if you're in the place where you're taking, and this was for neurotypical parents, so imagine how much more with autism. If you're in the place right now where you're taking care of children and your life is like, dishes and laundry and toys and all of these things, and you're like, when is my life not going to be about this? To hang on, because a day will come when it won't be about these things. And some of you will miss some of that time, right?
You definitely will.
But
trust me, you will.
I'm not telling you that you'll miss the IEPs, because you won't miss the IEPs, but I will tell you what will happen is that the day is going to come when you're going to stand a little bit taller and know that you showed up for these IEPs, that you got it done for him, and you'll be able to look back and go, it was all worth it. But what I know for sure, and what my esophagus would like to tell you, because I have an esophageal ulcer from that time, don't do that to yourself. Learn from my mistakes, because I still have the esophageal ulcer and suffer with it, right? Even though the stress is past. So put on your mask, pretend, and be outraged at and because they're doing outrageous things, right? You and I have talked about it. But don't dread it. This is going to be a great school year.
Yeah.
He's grown already so much. He is a light on this planet. You're going to have a great school year where he's going to learn a lot and focus on all the good things. Like, are they going to have a Halloween parade? What's he going to do this year? What's he going to learn this year? Focus on all that. Go in, put on the mask.
It's so true.
Act the role, but don't let yourself dread it, especially during the summer months. No need to. The law is on your side. You are going to win.
And Sarah wrote in, record those meetings, which is great advice.
Oh, yes.
And that
she
is
does.
very, very important. It's always very useful to have recordings, and you're allowed to do that, by the way.
Yep.
And I used to, as a professional, not even as a parent, I used to hate IEP meetings just because I'm very, very driven, very fast when it comes to my kids, my patients. I just want to like figure out what they need, get going, put a whole team on it, solve the problem, keep moving.
Well, the logical thing, what's best for the individual,
right, and just keep moving. And IEPs would drive me crazy because there was like, 5 hours of the first hour, everybody's just talking about like what coffee they prefer. And I'm like ready to kill myself in these meetings, but I would always find one of the people, like a teacher or an administrator or a resource specialist, someone, or a speech path, or someone who was kind of on my page and got it, and I would just focus on them.
Yeah.
And just finding one positive thing, as Shannon said, helps you get through it.
Absolutely. But part of the thing, because I've sat on both sides of the table with the IEP, part of the thing that you have to understand is that our federal government has not fully funded IDEA yet. So all the things that would make sense to build the team, they don't have the funding for it. So you have $20 worth of stuff that you want to pay for with a card that has $5.13 on it.
Right.
And that's why they're talking about coffee, because nobody wants to talk about that. I was saying yesterday, I kind of want to go to the Iowa State Fair this year, because that's when all the people who are running for president, you can get to them.
Yeah.
You can get right to them, stick a microphone in their face and say, how are you going to, because listen.
What are you going to do for us?
We were promised that they were going to fully fund IDEA. I know that there was this little thing called COVID, but I really want to stick. And later on, when it's all decided who the people that are actually, you can't get in anybody's face.
Yeah.
But at the Iowa State Fair, you can. And say to them, how are you going to fund IDEA? How are you going to make that a priority? We're at this crazy number, 1 in 36. That means there's somebody in every single freaking classroom. I get up.
Yeah.
Then when are we going to stop
23
this
boys.
nonsense? I know. When are we going to stop this nonsense? And it's there. The law is there, but no one on either, I don't care what your politics are, nobody on either side of the aisle has fully funded it. And that is why we have problems.
That's right.
So it has to change. Okay, we're essentially out of time, and Traven, bless his heart, has given me a long list of things that we're covering the rest of this week. I want to, and thank you, all of you, and I especially want to say hi to Yaima, who I don't think I've seen write into us before. She says, hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen, you're amazing with beautiful heart. Thank you for your help and guidance.
Thank you.
So thrilled that you're here. Okay, so on tomorrow's show, it's exciting, you guys. This is very exciting. First of all, for jargon, we're covering the 3-term contingency. We are doing autism news tomorrow. And then we've got 2 powerhouse interviews for you. I sort of leaked about this the other day. If you watch The Real Housewives of all the different places, especially Salt Lake City, one of the moms has left the show. Angie Harrington has left the show because her son, her 5-year-old, has been diagnosed with autism. It's a huge thing to say, I'm not going to be on this hit show because I'm going to focus on this. We have Angie Harrington tomorrow. You're going to get to see an interview that I did with her. And then, I'm telling you, if you didn't love her before, you're going to love her after this interview. And then later in the show, we're having Tasha Rollins on, who's also a mom and a clinician, and she's the one that we've been promising you this interview, that she's written a book that has all of the jargon terms in easy to understand language. It's a dictionary. We all need to have it on our bookshelf. So that is going to be tomorrow. Then on Thursdays, we're doing Stories from the Spectrum. And on Friday, we're going to be showing you a recent episode of Let's Talk All the Things with Rachel Bird, who just had a birthday. We're saying happy birthday to Rachel Bird. So that is what's going on for the rest of the week. It's
terrific.
And we've got a bunch of interviews in the shoot, you guys, that are going to be very exciting, and lots of lots of things coming up, not the least of which will be an announcement coming up soon about the second annual All Ghouls Gala.
Oh my gosh.
Which we're gearing up for. And if you heard about last year's, if you're making plans, and you should, to come to Los Angeles around that time, we do know that it's on October 28th.
Correct.
This much we know. We can't tell you. We know other things, but we can't tell you other things. All of this is, of course, to benefit that wonderful charity that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, Autism Care Today. So that you founded and that you are currently still the president of, and you've been doing amazing work there. But it is the off-the-chain adult Halloween party.
That's right.
People were a little confused last year about, is this a thing you bring your kids to?
No, it's an adult party.
This is an adult, and it is a costumes
It's a fundraiser,
required.
Yeah. Costumes required.
I mean, we did make a couple of exceptions, but those people were like, I should have been in costume. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it was, some of the costumes were incredible. Like, it was amazing.
Well,
last
you
year.
always win because she's
I love
amazing.
doing costumes.
Tell them who you
I was
were dressed-
David Bowie last
but
year.
not just David Bowie. David Bowie in a very.
as Ziggy Stardust.
There we go.
With the
I didn't recognize you. You walked by me 3 times.
You know, I didn't recognize my husband.
Well, I didn't
Because
recognize
he got
him
ready
either.
and came out, and I was like, "Oh my God!" But there were so many
And
amazing.
He was dressed as Axel, right?
Yes.
Axl
yeah,
Rose.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah.
But you know, have I ever told you my Axl Rose story?
No.
I met Axl Rose. I had a friend who was the band manager for Guns N' Roses, and my sister insisted on going. It's not my music, can I say?
Yes.
I was the boring woman in the mosh pit who asked for a chair in the mosh pit. But and then afterwards we got to go backstage, and I just had watched him on stage for 2.5 hours, and I stood and talked with him and my sister and a couple of other people all night long, and then we left, and I said, "I'm so sorry you didn't get to meet Axl Rose," and she smacked me and she said, "Who do you think we've been
That
talking to for the
was-
last 2
oh,
hours?"
my
I didn't
God.
recognize him. He's a beautiful man.
Yeah.
Looks nothing like he does when he's screaming
On
in
stage.
boxer shorts on stage with his hair pulled back into a Confederate flag. What can I say? He doesn't look like that. Very
so
intelligent.
funny.
We talked about French poetry. You would
That's
thoroughly enjoyed
amazing.
the conversation. Anyway, what are you going to do? I had no idea it was him. Didn't recognize him
There
at all.
you go.
Not at all. All right, you guys, we went over for that story. Sorry. Anyway, love to all of you. We will be back tomorrow live. And until then, and thank you.
Thank you,
you
Shannon.
for
What a great
everything.
show. Thank you
Oh.
so much.
You. But we will be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.